I'm going to go ahead and mute you all again. And welcome, welcome. Thank you so much for being here. And I'm just grappling with my mute thing. Here we go. Okay, there we go. Technology. I'm going to go ahead and place my candle back here. And let's go ahead and dive in. So you're all on video with me, which means that you probably have access to the chat box, whether you're on your phone or whether you're on your computer. And so I'm going to go ahead and just have you answer yes or no to these questions that we'll start with here. So yes or no, are you committed to mending the earth and contributing to positive paradigm shift? And go ahead and give me your Ursula. Awesome. Ursula says yes. Paula, Annabelle, Pia, beautiful. Jackie, Kiki, awesome. Yes or no, are you willing to open to receive even more? Yes or no? Awesome, great, getting some yeses. Barbara, Eliza, fantastic. Kelly, someone who's labeled user for the purposes of this call. Kay, yes or no, are you willing to try on using pleasure to amplify your creativity? Yes or no? Awesome. Ursula, hell yes. Pia, great, great, great. Julie, awesome. Welcome. Kelly, again, yes. Kay, beautiful. Paula, big fat capital, yes. And are you ready to jailbreak yourself from your glass ceilings? Use pleasure to jailbreak yourself from any of your current glass ceilings. Awesome, awesome. Beautiful. There's Keiki again, Ursula, Eliza. Beautiful. Wonderful. Thank you so much. And then yes or no, are you excited to be connecting today to other aligned women who strive to lead with pleasure? Are you excited to connect with each other today? Yes, yippee! Definitely, says Paula. Yes, with exclamation point, says Jackie. Beautiful. Oh, so happy that you're here. So we're here today to talk about how to use pleasure to attune your body to prosperity. And this is really all about creating more and manifesting hugely while receiving and actually doing less. So I'm Jessica Haidari. I support spiritual women trailblazers to lead with pleasure and to mend the world with divinely guided rebellion. Oh, yes, yes, yes. So I just want to acknowledge you. I want to acknowledge you for being the kind of women to carve out this time for your self-care. I do want this to feel like part of your self-care. And I know that connecting in circle with women like you is where I get my best ideas, my downloads in conversations like these, in collaboration, in limbic resonance, the chemicals of relaxation and bonding that our bodies produce when we women connect. So thank you for being the kind of woman who also just appreciates that connection. So I want to tell you why I'm doing this, why I'm passionate about this. So we Western women, we logically know that we're destined to mend the earth and to move forward with our arms linked together, deeply aligned, manifesting hugely and consistently, and also supported by each other and by divine guidance. But it's very easy to get very distracted by our to-do lists, our lives, and to kind of move about in a disjointed or a masculine way. And ultimately, we're all still really stuck in the trap of trying to do parts of our life alone, in ways that don't serve us, and we women are still trying to operate from within some very tired old paradigms. As well, this past year, man, I saw some of my powerful women leader friends just totally out of their bodies, just pulled out of their centers with the election, with white supremacists, police brutality, natural disasters. And because of just being pulled so far out of themselves, these women, I watched them lose money, they lost clients, they got sick, they were totally ungrounded, they got lost in irritability, anger, the critical mind, self-sabotage, all of these things that arise when we are not centered, when we are not taking care of ourselves. So intensity, when shit hits the fan, as it will again and again and again, you know, we're experiencing all of this intensity, and partially it's just because this is what we're noticing right now, because these things are happening in our neck of the woods, in our area. But these intense things happen all over the world all the time. We just, in this moment, it's just us right here that are just, it's all up in our face. And so I want intensity to actually draw you even deeper into your soul path, even deeper into your mission, even deeper into your vision and your creation. So Waking Women, there's this, it's time for us to walk our talk when it comes to feminine leadership. I am responsible for both my overwhelm and my pleasure. Being in my pleasure is an attractor as well as a fuel. You being in your pleasure is also an attractor and a fuel. So I really want you to harness your passion and your anger at world events as motivation. Motivation to get yourself into pleasure so that you can create powerfully on your own terms. You are a leader. People around you look for wisdom and guidance. And now it's time to open to the full creative, generative force and embodiment of opulence that is your birthright. Okay? Let's just take a moment. We can't hear each other right now, but let's just take a moment to just take in a deep breath. So my intentions for our time together today, we're in great need as women leaders of aligning our sacred values, our sovereignty, our vision, our mission with the support of a tribe of sisters who are also aligned. Women trailblazers like all of you who lead with pleasure, who strive to lead with pleasure, and mend the world with our divinely guided rebellion. So what I want for you today is, you know, I do want to acknowledge the fires that are happening in the North Bay as like a current natural disaster that is like really up in our face right now. At the beginning of this call, before I started recording, some of you were already talking about giving back and organizations. I also wanted to say that I am, my October 28th event here in Novato is going to be, all the proceeds will go to help victims of the fires. So I just wanted to speak to that, and I just want to encourage you in this conversation of prosperity and abundance and being so grateful for what we have. I do want to just encourage you to give back in any way that you feel is within your realm, even if it's just a prayer, to engage in acts of service for our friends and our loved ones who are really going through the ringer in the North Bay right now. But today, for this time together, I want this to be a retreat from your to-do list, a haven from the intensity of the world out there, and an oasis of resources that will draw you more deeply into your higher power, your deep goddess knowing, and your center, so that you can go back out into the world after this call and into 2018 as a deeply centered woman who is deeply resourced, and that you can feel your spiritual path under your feet. Okay? So in a few moments, we're going to do a little warm-up exercise, another little group chat share, and then I'm going to be teaching you how to use pleasure as an antidote for stress, how pleasure can rewire your brain, your body for magnetism and confidence and clarity. I'm going to give you some rituals to familiarize your body with abundance, and I'm going to give you 3 steps ultimately to open yourself to receive even more and expand past your glass ceilings. And I'll also towards the end walk you through a portal map to kind of lay the groundwork for you to live and lead and attain as an infinitely resourced woman. We'll have some small group discussions via the chat here. We'll do a Q&A session at the very end. And for those of you that do want to go a little deeper, I will let you know about a really beautiful special invitation for something happening in a couple of weeks. So, all right. Are you ready to dive in, my loves? Yes, yes, yes. You can go ahead and chat. Awesome. Ursula's ready. Paula's ready. Beautiful. While you're typing in your yeses, I'm going to go ahead and give you a little URL here in the chat. Some of you already got this from an email I sent about an hour ago. This is a handout that you're welcome to just click on that link that I just put there in the box, and it'll pop up a PDF handout in that very first page of the handout. If you want to, optional, you can print that out and use that to take some notes. You can print out the whole thing, but that first page is really perfect for our time together here. So, all right, let's go ahead and just dive right in. So I want to talk for just a moment here about embracing and normalizing pleasure, because some of us got some very weird messages around pleasure growing up, even non-sexual pleasure. Messages around like you have to work hard to make it happen, no pain, no gain, pull yourself up by your bootstraps and push through. Some of us received slut shaming in our growing up or even as adults. And even those of us that are very creative and empathic, we may have received some shaming around our creative genius or our empathic genius. And I think that those are absolutely tied to pleasure. So I wanted you to just take a moment to start to type in, and just in a word or a sentence or two, any weird messages that you received around pleasure. Any kind of negative messages. So I'll go ahead and take a few shares here. You can go ahead and type those in. Any weird messages or unhelpful messages that you received around pleasure. Ooh, very oh, there we go. Okay, great. Thank you. Oh, God, awesome. They're coming in. Beautiful. Jackie, no boy was to touch me. Barbara, there's a sense of embarrassing around pleasure. Keiki, we have to work hard first. Absolutely. Paula, we just didn't even talk about pleasure. Eliza, pleasure is just too much. Awesome. Beautiful. Thank you. Something is wrong by touching myself or pleasuring myself. It's not okay to take a break. Awesome. Amanda, welcome. And Kay, where did you put it? Let's see, I just want to clarify that. Oh, interesting, perfume. So kind of like where did you put that perfume? Like something around unclean intentions. Nice girls don't talk about pleasure. So this is some of you have heard this quote before because I mentioned it at a workshop that I taught recently. Some of you were there, and it was just something that came out of the mouth of my dear friend Rowena. And she said, joy and pleasure are and prosperity. Joy, pleasure, and prosperity are my deep opposition to the patriarchy. Joy, pleasure, and prosperity are my deep opposition to the patriarchy. So I'm just going to dive in and give you right off the bat 3 steps to open yourself to receive even more and expand past your glass ceilings. And I also want to acknowledge that prosperity is not only about money. It can be richness through all parts of your life, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. So step number 1, to open yourself and to receive even more and expand past your glass ceilings. Step number 1 is simply to ground. To ground. And what I mean by this in this particular case is to sink into your value, to ground and sink into your value. So this means releasing shame and upset at others for being more successful than you, and also stop measuring yourself by your monetary success. and to fill yourself up so that you feel fulfilled and relevant and centered and powerful regardless of what is in your bank account. There's a lot more to grounding that we're going to dive into in a bit here. I'm going to go deeper into all of these, but that's just kind of the initial essence. So step number 2 is align. And this also goes hand in hand with familiarizing your body and all of the different facets of you and your personality and the archetypes that live within you, to familiarize your body and all the facets of you with abundance. And this is actually where we're going to spend most of our time here today. And in this topic, we're going to go into, how to use pleasure to jailbreak yourself from your glass ceilings. We're going to talk about how you can actually rewire your physiology in your brain for grace and ease and prosperity. And we'll also talk a little bit about pairing your visions, your tasks, your goals with pleasure to kind of anchor in or to rewire yourself for attracting and receiving. And then number 3 is transmit. Number 3 step of opening yourself to receive even more and expand past your glass ceilings is to transmit. And this is all about using pleasure to embody the desired state in order to attract. So states such as authentic gratitude or joy, using pleasure to embody those as an attractor. So transmitting and attracting. So we're going to dive right into that one, transmit and attract. So we've been talking about the 3 steps to open yourself to receive even more and expand past your glass ceilings. And this step number 3 is transmit and attract. And here's a few things I want you to have your attention on. When we're talking about using pleasure to embody to attract, to embody a desired state in order to attract, one of the things that you'll want to have your attention on as we go through this is the experience of deepening your trust in attracting more while actually doing less. So we're talking about kind of coming from this place of leaning back and receiving versus going out and pursuing. Another thing you want to have your attention on is the process of expanding your capacity to truly rest and receive so that you can come from a place of generating and attracting. So it's just a little bit deeper cut of what we were just talking about, deepening your trust that you can actually lean back and attract so that it's not all about doing, but also expanding your capacity to actually rest and receive so that you can create from a place of generating and attracting. And another piece of this, another piece of transmitting and attracting is also attracting in the right people who can support you on your journey, community, tribe, sisterhood, so that you can use pleasure to elevate your consciousness, and also so that people feel your light and your intentions and they actually want to be around you. So I want to talk a little bit about Oprah and prosperity. And here's another question for you. It's yes or no. Have you ever experienced Oprah transmitting? Yes or no? This is like you're watching the Oprah show back in the 90s, or you're watching Super Soul Sunday, and she's just being herself and dropping blobs of wisdom everywhere. And you're sitting there and there's a TV, like you're not even with her personally, but you're receiving a transmission. You're receiving wisdom just by being around her. Awesome. Lots of yeses. Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you so much for interacting with me, ladies. So when Oprah was asked about how she achieved success, she said, "My life is fueled by my being, and the being fuels the doing. So I come from a centered place. I come from a focused place. I come from compassion." She said, appreciating whatever shows up in your life changes your personal vibration. You radiate and generate more goodness. She says, people who feel blessed, lucky, prosperous are grateful people. And the single greatest thing that you can do to change your life today would be to be thankful for what you have, and you will end up having more. She also says, and this is a separate quote, to surround yourself only with people who are going to lift you higher. So transmitting is very different than working hard and pursuing and hunting. Like my hands want to do this when I say those words. And transmitting is all about leaning back to generate and then receive. Generate and then receive. Pleasure elevates my consciousness. People feel my intention and want to be around me. So for those of you that hopped on a little bit late, I'm Jessica Hadari. I support spiritual women trailblazers to lead with pleasure and mend the world with divinely guided rebellion. And I want to talk a little bit about just very briefly go into my own story because it ties into this transmitting versus pursuing. So I grew up, I have to take a sip of water. Bear with me you can take a breath. Oh, Jill, welcome. Jill, I believe that's Jill Nagel. Jill quoted the little quote from me, the being fuels the doing. So thanks, Jill, so much for quoting that. And thanks, Kelly, for being here. It looks like Kelly had to hop off, but I'm so glad that you're here. So my story, so I grew up as a competitive athlete. I was a competitive athlete by the time I was 10 years old. I was under contract by the time I was 13. And in that world, like at the elite level, we were encouraged to be athletes on top of injuries, on top of broken toes. It was a very, very competitive environment. Like very intensely so. Also, my father is a military man, so I grew up with lots and lots of programming around like working hard and competitiveness and just kind of like the harder you are, the stronger you are. Fast forward years later, I basically my whole 30s, pretty much the last like 10 years has just been like one illness and intensity after another. Lots of illness, lots of chronic pain from old neck injuries. I had part of my cervix removed. I was also dealing with lots of chronic adrenal and fatigue issues. In just a few short years, I had 7 shingles outbreaks. The last outbreak was actually in the cranial nerves in my head and my brain, so I couldn't talk well for a couple of days. It's also the paralysis that you see on part of my face and into my neck is a result of some of the illness. And after a certain point, it was like, you know, you're sick for so many years and you burn through all of your reserves and then you burn through your credit cards. And so illness had me on food stamps for about 3 years. And so it was kind of like that was my rock bottom, whereas like the only change that I had the power to make was what side of the bed I could sleep on. I had no power, no money, no energy. And so at the urging of some very dear friends of mine, I started practicing radical self-care, really for the first time in my life, actually allowing myself to take naps and to work through feeling guilty around laying down for 20 minutes. And my friends said, one of my friends, Steve, said, you need to spend most of your time in devotion to yourself. And so I started engaging in self-care, but that led me to start engaging in pleasure practices. And when I started doing this, my events that I was creating, many of you know that I create events every month. My events started to overflow. I started to have like more people wanted to be my clients than I even had space for. In a period of a few years, I attracted 3 men into my life that all wanted to spend their lives with me. I'm with one of them now. And I was able to build a 6-figure business based entirely on co-creation with other women and based entirely on the celebration of other women's success. I only work 3 days a week. My ex-husband, who I'm very good friends with, just gifted me $10,000 to kind of help me settle into a new home that magically fell into my lap. And I use pleasure practices and even sex magic and pleasure to amplify my field so that I can call in greater opulence and opportunities. So that's what we're here to talk about today. We'll go a little bit deeper into transmitting and attracting a little bit more in my Sex Magic webinar, which is all about sexual power, oracular power, and infusing liminal magic with your sexual energy. So we're gonna go out there a little more in that webinar. That's on Wednesday, November 15th at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Here's the link to that so that you can see more. It's free. It's another webinar like this. You can just get on in there, girl. There's the link. I just posted it for you, opulentpriestess.com/sexmagic. So we'll go deeper into this transmit and attract piece in that webinar, but it's absolutely a piece of opening yourself to receive more and expand past your glass ceilings. So let's take a deep breath. Oh, it's so beautiful to see your faces. Thank you again so much for being here. So step number two to open yourself to receive more and expand past your glass ceilings is all about alignment. Alignment. I got to take another sip of water, ladies. That was a big gulp. Okay, when I take a sip of water, you take a sip of water. Oh man, all right, good. Oh, so delicious. We're so blessed to have clean, awesome water at our fingertips. I got to cough for a second. A little comic relief there. Okay, so align. This is all about, so when you align from the core of who you are, your values, your sovereignty, your vision, your mission, you become more creative and more productive with less efforting, right? When things are aligned, it just feels easier. So when I'm aligned, I'm attracting in the right people, the right experiences, the right opportunities, the right situations that are also in alignment with what it is that I'm wanting. So you can use pleasure to feel what is truly in alignment. So you can also pair your visions, your tasks, your goals with pleasure to rewire your physiology and your brain for attracting and receiving. So let's talk about the brain's pleasure centers and chemicals. So there's been a lot of studies recently, thank goodness, that study more women's brains and pleasure and women's physiology and pleasure. In fact, more and more doctors and hospitals are actually looking, and studies are being done on the relationship between stress relief and pleasure for women, and also between pain relief and pleasure for women. So there's a lot of science that's starting to back up what I'm about to tell you. So there's a wonderful book. I'll go ahead and paste it for you. It's called How to Rewire Your Burned Out Brain, Tips from a Neurologist. So I'm just typing it for you right there. So it's a wonderful book. Feel free to take a look at it. Sorry, my dogs are doing their thing. So this book is by Judy Willis. She's an MD. And she says something that we've all heard before: neurons that fire together wire together. So she goes on to say that as you internalize your stress, your overwhelm, your self-doubt, as you engage in stress, you actually activate and strengthen your brain's negative reactive neural networks. And as these circuits become the automatic go-to networks, the brain is less successful in problem solving and emotional control. The lower brain, so the lower brain is like scarcity, survival, scavenger mentality. The lower brain takes control. But you can use pleasure to reset these circuits that direct your brain to access its highest cognitive resources, creativity, and igniting that experience of moving forward and igniting versus an experience of retreating and contracting and collapsing into overwhelm. So this is also called the reward circuit, which includes all kinds of pleasure, everything from sex to laughter, any kind of pleasure. So Jill Willis, MD, the woman who wrote this book, says your weapon of mass reconstruction can come from your brain's very powerful desire for its own neurochemistry and the pleasure that it brings. So isn't that beautiful? I can go deeper into some of the chemicals, the dopamine, and some of the pleasure centers. I'm not going to do that right now, but there's a lot of good information in her book and actually on the internet right now, some good information. So take a look at that. So I want to give you some homework, okay? So here's your homework. Your homework is to engage in what she was talking about, pairing pleasure with your tasks, goals, and visions, and rewiring your experience of these things in life that can be stressful, and having your brain and your physiology associate those things with pleasure. So this means doing pleasure, before and after you do your bookkeeping, doing pleasure before and after some kind of pleasure practice. Pleasure practice before and after you do a client enrollment call or a job interview. Pleasure before and after you give a talk or do an audition. Pleasure before and after you have a hard conversation. So before we had this call, you bet you, absolutely, I was absolutely engaging in my pleasure practices. And again, pleasure practices don't have to be sexual. They can absolutely be non-sexual. In fact, I want you to take a moment to go ahead and type in some non-sexual pleasure practices. This could be something as simple as taking a nap, like I was talking about a little bit earlier. But what else? What else is a pleasure practice? Go ahead and type that in. Could be taking a walk in nature. It could be just sitting and sipping an aromatic tea and not being distracted by your email, and like literally just sitting and having your tea. Awesome. Nature. Let me just scroll through. Ursula says bath with salts, oils, crystals. Nature. Annabelle says meditation, watching funny videos. Absolutely. Yes. Netflix therapy. To a certain extent. Awesome. Doing my nails. Absolutely. Self-care, surrounded by soft flowing air. Beautiful. Nice tea, good food, puppy cuddles. Beautiful. Thank you so much for chiming in. So there's so many different ways that we can engage in pleasure and actually use them, sandwich things that we don't necessarily look forward to, or things that we just need more energy, or we just want to kind of change our state. You can sandwich those with pleasure. Okay. So I wanted to talk about, this number 2, what we're talking about is alignment. So let's tie in alignment with pleasure. So when you're in overwhelmed, stress, scarcity, you're not, or you're not fully aligned with what you're speaking and offering out into the world, then you are not transmitting in alignment. We talked about transmitting a moment ago. Now we're talking about alignment. And your clients and your potential clients and your potential partners and your kids pick up on that. So you can actually use pleasure to feel what is in alignment. And when you are in your pleasure, constructs and shoulds and negativities that are not in alignment start to feel gross. Like you might actually feel nauseous when you are in your pleasure and then suddenly you're faced with something that is not in alignment with what you're creating. Like you feel it in your body. But when you're in stress and overwhelmed, you kind of numb out. And so it's harder to navigate. That compass, that pleasure compass isn't there. That alignment compass isn't there. So I want, let's see, where do I want to go with this? I want to talk about the success flu. I want to talk about, I got some hair in my mouth. All right, let's talk about the success flu. So yes or no, you can chat in the, oh good, Michelle, I just saw in her pleasure V-steam. So she's talking about vaginal steaming. That's awesome. I want to know more about that. Okay, this is the success flu. So type yes or no Have you ever received something big? More money, something awesome? Have you ever received something big, something awesome fell into your lap, and then you got really sick or really tired? Please type in yes or no if that's ever happened to you. If you've ever received something big and then gotten really sick or really tired, yeah. So there's another wonderful book, and I did not take the time to label the authors. I'm going to go ahead and type that in here. Awesome. Lots of yeses. Julia, yes. Eliza, yes. Jackie, Jill, Pia, Keiki, Michelle, Hart. Welcome, Michelle. Ursula, yes. Paula, awesome. There's a fantastic book called The General Theory of Love. It's written by 3 MDs, and they talk about, the book is all about bonding and like the science of bonding and love and limbic resonance. And they go on to say that if something good comes into your life, but you haven't made energetic or psychological space for it, consciously or unconsciously, then that good thing is perceived by your body and your physiology as a threat. That's why when most people win the lottery, they actually lose the money very quickly. Sometimes their lives actually get worse. So you can use pleasure to rewire your self-imposed glass ceilings, your physiological, you're wired for like a certain amount of prosperity, and hopefully with pleasure and with processes and with therapy or whatever, like over time we grow and expand as people. So that capacity grows and expands. But you can like immediately expand your capacity to hold the life that you are calling in, to really hold and receive the life you are calling in by using pleasure. And it all ties back into this rewiring that we've been touching on. So I'm going to give you 3 ease and grace accelerator rituals. And these are really meant to help you use pleasure to rewire your self-imposed glass ceiling. So the first ritual, these are all very, very simple. The first ritual is to take a priestess bath. Ursula, you were speaking to something like a priestess bath a little bit earlier. Some of you may have done this. I try to do this like maybe once a month, where basically you make a bath for yourself. You put any essential oils or crystals. I always like to put some Himalayan or Celtic salts, any like really good, delicious salts. And it's almost as if you are treating your body like a crystal, right? And you are getting into the bath and recharging. I often receive massive downloads when I take a priestess bath. Once you're done with your priestess bath, you can actually take pitchers full or jars full of that bath water and pour it around your property. Or if you live in an apartment, you can kind of walk around your block and just kind of, it's like you're sowing your prayers and your intentions and what you're calling in, or anything you're letting go of. This can also be a wonderful release ritual, letting go of stuff that you're kind of like giving it back to the earth, literally. And it's incredible what magical things open up when you start doing this priestess bath ritual. It recharges, it resets your nervous system, but it also is this deep, beautiful prayer with Mother Earth where you're like literally taking your essence and giving it to Gaia. Okay, so it's a beautiful, I would love for you to all, sometime in the next week to take a priestess bath. The second ritual is more of a process. And I got this from my dear friend, Marcia Baginski. She says to make a list of 20 obligations, 20 places in your life where you are grappling with obligations. And it could be something as simple as there's a door with a door hinge in your dwelling that's squeaky and you just haven't fixed it. You kind of put up with it. So 20 things that you're kind of putting up with. And that this is something that you could do every year or so, and to just weed your garden, to go through and just eliminate militants, eliminate self-imposed deadlines, eliminate any obligatory shoulds. So make your list of 20 obligations and then weed that shit out, okay? Also, very powerful, potent process or ritual. The third ritual is to take, and this is just to take your favorite visualization exercise, your favorite process, or your favorite ritual, and to pair it with pleasure. Okay, so that could be something like actually pleasuring yourself, like actually touching yourself in a pleasurable or even sexual way, and being in your process or your visualization or your ritual. But it could also be, doing something, while you're in dance, or doing some, if you love to journal, do some journal and do some dance before and after, or taking a walk in nature, or watering your plants, but taking something that is immensely pleasurable and has to do with self-care, and move some energy. Pair it with a ritual or an exercise or a process that you loved to do, and amazing magical things will open up for you. So step number 1, we're kind of working backwards. We're talking about the 3 steps to open yourself to receive even more and expand past your glass ceilings. I'll go ahead and put that here. Someone says, oh, bummer, I don't own my own bathtub. I go to Essex instead. Okay, awesome. Yeah, so you can go to Essex. Awesome, Julia. Welcome. So 3 steps to open yourself to receive even more and expand past your glass ceilings. Step number 1 is to ground. To ground and to sink into your value. Now, this one is something that is an ongoing process. Even my 7-figure sisters grapple with this old stuff. Value and grounding, releasing shame and upset around perceiving others to be more successful than you, measuring yourself by your monetary success. That's a piece of it. But I really want you to use pleasure as fuel, so that you feel fulfilled and relevant and powerful regardless of your circumstances, regardless of what is in your bank account, regardless of world circumstances, and to use pleasure to gather your energy and to center and to focus, so that everything you do is amplified and magnified and more potent. So there are practices that you can customize that we talked about just a moment ago to nourish yourself and make space for your dreams, okay? Now, we mentioned before that prosperity is not only about money. It can be richness through all parts of your life. So I want you to take a moment to look at that handout that I posted for you a little bit earlier. I'm going to repost it right here. This is a worksheet, and we're going to look at page 3 together. Let's see. Bear with me for a sec. I got to grab it from the top here. Okay, so our handout, some of you received this in your email that I sent at 3 o'clock today, but here we go. Okay, so if you don't have it, here it is. You can go ahead and click on that link that I just put in there, and page number 3. So page number 3 is just a visual. This is actually a feng shui bagua. And the feng shui bagua is basically just a map of your garden. It's like these 9 different areas, kind of on a grid, that represent different parts of your life. And in feng shui, you would take this feng shui bagua, this grid, and lay it over your home or each room in your house, and then the corresponding areas in your home or in your room, in the room that you're working with, would correspond with these different areas in the bagua. But today we're going to use it as a little bit of a map for manifesting. Because here's the thing, ladies. When it comes to manifesting, we often get tunnel vision. And we focus on just 1 or 2 parts of our life. Often the prosperity and money piece is like a major focus. But if you want magical things to open up in your life, including prosperity, you have to nourish your entire garden. So I want you to take these pleasure rituals that I just gave to you to nourish and make space for your dreams in each and every, over time, in each and every part of this feng shui bagua, of this map of your the garden of your life. So your homework is to take this map and to ask yourself, where can I weave in more pleasure? How can I weave more pleasure into every part of this map? So you can go ahead, if you're already receiving some awesome downloads based on this map that you're looking at, hopefully you're looking at, go ahead and just type in some of what's coming through. Where can you weave more pleasure into? What areas can you weave more pleasure into? And I'd love to hear from you in the chat box. We have, let me take a look, open at mine. Go ahead and type that in. So the areas of the Bagua are home, money and possessions, reputation, partner, love, sex, family, community, supportive friends, children, creative expression, health, appearance, self, career and income, wisdom, leisure, relaxation, all of these different areas. Beautiful. Ursula wrote partner, health, home, finance. Pia, spending more nourishing, yummy time with female friends. Beautiful. Paula said work projects. Beautiful. Anyone else have other areas of their life that's like, okay, it's time to weave in a little more pleasure? Amanda says, I love giving myself time and not rushing. Beautiful. Quality family time. Decor. Oh, hugely important that you are living in a place that feels like your sanctuary. Beautiful at everything. Beautiful. Oh, awesome. Thank you, beautifuls. Thank you so much. Jill said, not my strong suit. Okay, thanks so much for being honest. Yeah, pleasure, it's a whole thing. That's why we're talking about it today. So there have been some very well-vetted studies that show that when women connect, we produce pleasure hormones of relaxation, pleasure hormones and relaxation hormones. So just by connecting with women who are as passionate about their soul calling as you are, it's not only where I get my best ideas and my downloads in conversation, in collaboration, in limbic resonance, but being in sisterhood with other sacred rebels where we're all on the same path is a cure for overwhelm. Connecting with other high vibration people, connecting with women is radical self-care. So sisterhood normalizes and encourages us to stay on the path lovingly with support, love, and compassion. And sharing resources like we have been today, being in this together, it makes it easier. It makes it as easy for each other as possible to be aligned women trailblazers who are mending our planet with pleasure. So in a moment, I'm going to unmute you and we're going to open the call up for Q&A. This call is scheduled to go until 5:15. I want you to at least try to stay on for a few more minutes. Take a moment now to write down your questions. You don't have to put them in the chat, but write them down because I will unmute you in a moment. And I'm just going to take a sip of water while you start to write your questions down. And I have an invitation for you while we wait. So I want to invite you into a sisterhood of co-creation, to surround yourself with women, with queens, with conscious women leaders like you, a community of women who choose collaboration and positive support. When I'm surrounded by my queens, they deeply reflect to me my value. And they awaken my yes to myself and what is wanted and aligned versus what is not wanted and not aligned. So I want to invite you to ecstatic manifestation. Rest, receive, and manifest with pleasure. This is a live virtual 6-week manifestation initiation and sister circle. And even if you can't make all 6 weeks, I still want you to join. Weeks 1 and 2 are all about grounding and using pleasure to sink even more deeply into your value. So I'm going to give you even more pleasure rituals and practices that you can customize to nourish and make space for your 2018 dreams. We're going to use pleasure to gather your energy, to center and to focus so that everything you do moving forward into 2018 is amplified and magnified and more potent. Weeks 3 and 4 is all about alignment, using pleasure to familiarize your brain and your body with abundance. I'm going to give you some powerful exercises to continue to jailbreak yourself from your current glass ceilings. We're also going to be pairing our visions, our tasks, our goals with pleasure so that we can all together continue to rewire our physiology and brains for attracting and receiving. So it's like what they say, it takes, 30 days to create a new habit. So we're going to continue to be in that, in those pleasure practices together. My intention with weeks 3 and 4 is for you to really align from the core of who you are, your values, your sovereignty, your vision, your mission, to become more creative and more productive with less efforting. Weeks 5 and 6 are all about transmitting and attracting, embodying pleasure to attract. And so it's really here that you're going to deepen your trust in attracting more while doing less. It's easy to not trust that. Deepen your trust in attracting more while actually stepping back to do less. Engaging in pleasure practices to expand your capacity to create from a place of generating and attracting. And we're going to use pleasure, of course, to elevate our consciousness so people feel your light, your intentions, and want to be around you and work with you. So this is the ecstatic manifestation, rest, receive, and manifest with pleasure. It is a live virtual 6-week manifestation and initiation sister circle. I'm going to go ahead and put the URL for you here so that you can take a look at all of the logistics yourself. Because we're going to go into our Q&A here in just a moment. So my mentor wanted me to offer this at about $1,000. And I just, talking about feeling, about what's aligned, that didn't feel aligned. I would prefer to give you a humongous deal. And I'll go into all the logistics with you in just a moment, including the humongous deal that I'd like to give to you. But what I want for you is to stop letting Trump and stress and chaos out in the world, stop letting that pull you out of your center alignment. Because I want you to lead and create as a deeply centered woman, regardless of the chaos in the world. I want you to harness your upset at world chaos as motivation to live in pleasure so that you can create powerfully and on your own terms. I also want you to stop trying to figure it out all alone or to do manifestation all alone. I want you to lean back into the support of a tribe of sisters who are also committed to being aligned. Women trailblazers who are committed to leading with pleasure and mending the world with you. And I also want you to stop training your neurology for irritability and sabotage and overwhelm, and expand your capacity to actually rest and receive so you can create from a place of generative attracting. And I want you to lead by being softer. And I want you to create courageously from compassion and fulfillment and joy and freedom and spaciousness. So please consider joining me. Ecstatic manifestation, rest, receive, and manifest with pleasure. This is a 6-week manifestation initiation and sister circle. And like I said, even if you can't make it for all 6 weeks, I want you to join. Please join me.